We laugh. We cry. We learn. But really, what doesn't kill you makes you better at managing clients and everyone. I'm Morgan Friedman, and this is Client Horror Stories.
Hello, everyone, to the latest episode of Client Horror Stories. I'm excited to have Melinda Spaulding with me today. How are you doing, Melinda?
I'm great. How are you, Morgan?
I'm in a great mood after Melinda and I spent far too long trying to solve some tech problems, but hopefully they're solved. If you're watching us, that means we solved them. And with that, I have my bottle of butternut vodka in hand, ready for your exciting horror story. Tell me your favorite client horror story, Melinda. Yes, you actually have a beer. I love
Absolutely.
it. You get a gold star.
Very good. You know, I try to please, especially with my horror stories. So let's see how I go.
You need some alcohol to talk about it.
Oh, yes. It was quite painful. I think I still have a little bit of PTSD. So I don't know for the, kind of work that you deal with clients, but I feel like the hardest has always been dealing with procurement. And especially when I first got started. Oh, yeah. And when I first started my business and I had to do it all on my own, that was probably the most intimidating part, was managing with procurement and getting contracts. But I got my first really big project, loved the client. I was super excited. But the only way I could get it to work was if I got the billing terms in the contract a certain way, because this study is market research study, and it was going to have a lot of honoraria to physicians. So almost half of the whole cost of the study was in fees I had to pay out for people to take the survey. So it was a lot to manage and float, right? So I of course, I'm negotiating with procurement on the contract. At the same time, I'm getting pressure from my client of hey, we need to start this. We need to get going. I'm I know, but I've got to get the contract terms in place. And if I don't get them structured in a certain way, because I got to get paid. So I'm trying to juggle all those little pieces.
So let's, I like that. So yeah, but the client is from the same company as the procurement, but the client was just the executive or whomever. So he also had to deal with procurement on his back end as well.
Exactly. And I don't know if this is how you deal with it, but almost every time I deal with procurement, it's always email, never talk to a live person. It's always the back and forth, red lines on contracts and things like that. So
by the way, I think procurement does the email only strategy because that's typical for a few reasons. First, they're a little bit like anonymous trolls on the internet. When you're going to be an asshole, you don't want anyone to see you or know you or know your real name. You and I are having a friendly, fun conversation now, so it's harder for me to do terrible things to you. You're like another human. I see you right here. But when it's just anonymous, all numbers, Elon, then your full nastiness come out, and it makes hard negotiating easier.
This is where the story, I think, gets weird and probably a little bit, I don't know, crazy.
I'm so excited.
So we finally get the contract in place, right? And I'm off to the races. I'm I've invoiced, I've got the contract signed, I've got a purchase order, I've invoiced, I'm good to go. And this is back when my office was in my living room. So I had young kids, got the kids to bed, right? And all of a sudden I hear my office phone ringing. And it's that dreaded, you're do I answer it? It can't be good. If the office line is ringing after hours. So of course I go in and I see on the caller ID.
By the way, I just want to point out this story dates both of us in age so much because
we have an office line.
You had an office line.
I did, yeah. With caller ID, which is not standard. I had to pay extra for that, right? So on the caller ID, I see it's the company name, right? So I'm thinking something's going on, right? So I pick up the phone and it's the procurement person, actually on the phone talking to me. We're going to call her Becky because I want to give her a name. We'll call her Becky. And Becky says, hey, Melinda, it's Becky. And she goes, yeah, I'm going to cancel your contract and I'm going to send you a new one. because I should never have agreed to those billing terms and I'm going to get in trouble. So we're going to just go through and do a new contract. Now, mind you, like the project has already begun. I've already invoiced. I've got a purchase order.
And she and they had signed off on it.
And signed off on it. Yeah, everyone has signed. And I was like, I don't think you can do that. I'm pretty sure that's not okay. Like, I don't think you can do that. And she goes, oh, but I already did. I already canceled your contract. I canceled your purchase order, and we won't be paying your invoice because it doesn't tie to any purchase order or contract that exists in the system. And I was just like, is somebody pranking me? Like, I can't believe this is, I was just stammering. I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. So I'm like, what do you do? Like, I don't even know what you do. So the weird thing about the story that happens is, so she did it. She sent me a new contract that night.
So before you pause, I also want to observe, this is typical for procurement in dealing with small players and small companies. And I often think they do this on purpose because it's like any excuse to not pay, no matter how sketchy they're going to get. Sometimes I think there's no different. There's a saying, don't attribute to maliciousness what you can attribute to stupidity. But sometimes I think that's just wrong, because in practice, there's no difference between extreme stupidity and maliciousness.
There's no way this is legal either. Like, there's no way. I'm like, and at this point, you're right, because you're small. What am I going to do? Get my team of lawyers to go after this big company?
Exactly.
Like, exactly. Like, no, I don't even have an office. I'm like, I have a landline. Are you kidding me? So anyway, she sends me this contract or whatever, and I'm like, okay, I am freaking out. And I talked to my husband. We're partners.
But question, so I can understand the situation. Did you want to change the contract in a way that's substantially worse for you?
Oh yeah, the billing terms. Like, the way she was changing the billing terms was gonna, like, basically I was gonna have to try to cash flow this project. I mean, it's probably, I would say it was probably about $100,000 that was going out to, like, pay physicians to take the survey, like, an honoraria, because it was such a big study, and I would have to pay them. And I'm like, I don't have $100,000 just sitting around to pay and float. Yeah, it was really going to screw me. And at this point, I've already started. Like, I've already made commitments. I've already got vendors on board. I've got to get going.
So interesting. I want to make an observation here for our younger readers. The point of this podcast is to educate the next generation.
Yeah.
Which is, in negotiating a contract, a lot of people just think about the dollar amount.
Yeah.
But I always make the argument that the terms are just as important. And my silly canonical way of canonical for me, because this is all the time, of my fun way of making this point is selling someone a pencil or whatever. I'm gonna sell you this bottle of water for $100 right now. You give me $100, I'll give you the bottle of water. Is very different than me selling this to you for $100. $1 a year for the next 100 years. and the point that the silly example makes, which your horror story brings out strongly, is cash flow matters. Like it's a world of difference whether you get the money now or in 120 days.
Well, and a lot of companies, in market research, they get a line of credit. And they manage this line of credit. And I've seen a lot of my friends that have done the same thing. You get into trouble because it's a lot to manage. And I don't think it's worth it. So I get the new contract. I feel like I have no recourse. I sign it and I get the PO the next day and I invoice. Now, here's what's funny. When I get the PO, it has the original billing terms on the PO. I'm like,
that's hysterical.
What was this whole thing about? So I just roll with it. It all ends up working out fine. But at the time, I mean, I really was freaking out. I'm thinking I got to go to the bank and get a line of credit. Like, I got to float, or I'm just going to be delinquent on paying people.
So how did it have the original terms? Was it like incompetence on this person's part, or did?
I have no idea, because it was crazy. Like, and I was sitting there looking, I'm like, here's the contract that says like 60 days. Here's the purchase agreement that my invoice goes to that says 45. I'm like, I just was, you know what? I was just like, this is just what it's going to be. Like, and I will say that is not the first time that's happened, or that's not the last time that it happened. I've had other clients since then where the contract terms and their purchase agreement terms, and then the day they end up billing are not always the same. Like, it's such a crazy way to do it. I will say that the lesson learned is my point of contact, the person I was doing the project for, and procurement, right? They sit in completely different, they probably were in different buildings.
Different states.
Yeah, they could have been in different states. Now, if anything like that happens to me, I let the tension on their end kind of fester rather than the tension exist with me. So I just go back to like the person I'm doing the work for, and I'm like, sorry, I'd love to do this project for you, but I am getting the runaround on procurement. So you might have to find somebody else. And I think that only comes with like some experience to realize if they've gone through all that work, they want to work with me.
Right.
Let them deal with the craziness on their company's side. Like, I don't want to be brought into that. I don't think I had the confidence to know to do that however many years ago this was, before I had to color my hair every other week. But but now I know, like, the tension, let that tension exist on their end and let it work for you.
So there's actually a good lesson in there, which in every episode, I try to get at least one new lesson out, because I've done maybe 80 of these now. And it's a lot of it's like, make sure you document and are clear on the terms. But I always try to see if we can extract one new lesson. And you just made a really good point that I don't think has come out in any of the previous 79 or so episodes.
Yay.
Let's have a cheers to that. which is the powerful strategic utility of letting them fight it out on their side. Said more simply, you don't have to solve every single problem. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of young professionals and young people in general, like, I want to be competent. I want to show the world I'm competent. I want to do things. And as a result of that, you kind of put the problems of the world on your shoulder. And I think you see this in like the political world, like famously, like the 18-year-olds are the political activists. Mm-hmm. But I think a business professional version of that same instinct is the young professional says, oh my God, there's a problem. I need to solve it. Even though the problem is like deep in the heart of how their company works between two different people in two different departments of their company. And it takes a lot of experience to realize, dude, let them sort it out, and then they'll come to me. And if your guy really needs to start tomorrow, he will get procurement to make sure that it starts tomorrow.
Yeah. Do you think it's also tied to, like, we don't really negotiate? Like I think negotiation has been a lost skill. Like, it's almost been all kind of digital. And because that was the other thing, is I learned to get better at negotiating and asking more questions. I think you're right. Like, solving the problem. There's the one thing of like, yes, I want to solve the problem and move on and get going. But it's also like, I could have just asked a lot more questions. Like,
so you know what's interesting? Excellent topic. I'm so excited to brainstorm on this because I haven't really thought about this. I have thought too much about a cousin question, which is, sorry for being offensive, everyone, audience, the art of picking up girls. And younger me 20 years ago, different stage of my life, I really had a lot of fun doing things like going to bars and just going up to people I didn't know and talk to them. It was like scary and nerve-wracking. But apparently the young ones these days, like, it never happens. It's 100% apps. And actually, I was talking to a friend of mine. This is going to tie in, don't worry. I was talking to a young friend of mine recently that he's like a 26-year-old. He like saw some cute girl in a bar, went up to her and like started to say something flirty with her. And she looked at him and said, "Are you trying to pick me up? Can you come in and do that again so I can record it to post it on my TikTok?"
Oh my God. Oh no.
But like, it's like the art of sales, of negotiating, of going to somebody you don't know and having that scary conversation to try to get them excited to go out with you is so dead that when someone does it today, it's like a TikTokable moment. And I feel like there's this parallel to your point where 20 years ago there was a much more direct approach where you have these hard conversations and you sort of and it's an art. You have to learn the art of not losing your shit when people push back with difficult things. You have to learn the strategic things of when people say no, you can only do it for half as much. You have to learn the strategies. Okay, then for that much we can then do this, but not that. And now if it's all this sort of all through email, all indirect, then no one learns a skill. And picking up girls, it's a very useful skill. My final comment on this question would be, I think the trend is happening. It's true. I think you make a great observation here. I think it's a part of what we could call the Californication of the US or the Californication of the world. And what I mean by that is I'm from New York and I lived a long time in California. So I know how to do business in both and I get it, but they have wildly different styles. Where are you from, by the way?
I'm right in the middle. I'm in Indianapolis.
You're in, so by the way, I know zero about the Midwest. I'm on coastal
flyover state. Yeah.
So you can tell me about the middle analysis, but the New York style is to be blunt and brutal. Oh, this is a terrible contract. I'm never doing this. Is it? And to be blunt, brutal, difficult to your face. In California, on the other hand, there's this in both LA and San Francisco. There's this style, a very different style. No one ever wants to be the person that said no to the next Facebook or the next superstar. So there's this culture of always smiling, being nice, saying yes, never saying the hard stuff. And I remember 20 years ago, wildly different styles. But what's interesting thing has happened over the last 20 years. I feel like even in New York, everyone everywhere is kind of adopting this sort of California style of just being nice. But then when they're not around, being or doing the asshole thing. As a New Yorker, neither is ideal, but I far prefer the New York style because then at least you know what's happening. The California style is to give you a false hope because they don't tell you no directly. In New York, a potential when you're trying to raise money, a potential investor will be like, no, this business will never work. Here are the reasons. Go fix that. Good luck. But in California, they'll be like, you have a great idea. You're doing so much. Let's have a meeting again in a few months. And so you're like, wow, he's still on my MQL list of leads. I'd rather hear the.
I'd rather hear the blunt side. Yeah, it's funny. I have clients on both coasts, so I can see that for sure. Midwest, we're just passive aggressive, so we just so we're just might be nice for a little while, and then we might stare you down and just brood about it for a bit. So I think part of it is that dynamic of everything's gone digital and faceless, right? And so it's easier to think about now. You don't break up with somebody, you block them. You don't have that hard conversation. Yes. But I also think especially for kind of younger generation, COVID did a mess. It just, we had this isolation and we got used. It's almost like it, I don't know, was a catalyst to make it even more where you're not direct. You don't have conversations, that face to face. So I now have 2 teenagers, I guess. My daughter just turned 13 and I have an 18-year-old son. And so it was interesting watching my son be a teenager in COVID, then coming out of COVID. Right. And there's one scenario, he broke up with his girlfriend and I was like, he started snapping another girl. And I was like, where'd this girl come from? She at your school? He's like, no, I ran into her. I met her at a Mexican place getting, tacos with my friends. And I was like, well, how did you get her snap? And he goes, well, I went up and asked her. And I was just like,
so old school.
Congratulations. Did she TikTok
it? You're teaching him well.
I did. Well, no, I think he just hormones taught him well. I was just got to hear about it later. But but it was that thing. He goes, yeah, my friends were like, oh, and he's like, I'm gonna go talk to her. But it was such a big deal because these kids, they just, they had a whole, 2-3 years where they didn't go to dances. They didn't they didn't go to the movies. They didn't go do stuff. They did it all at home. It's like, it's very different.
Yeah, excellent example and great story. And what's also interesting is these patterns fall into these like much bigger trends of kind of making like what we could call the procurementization of the world. Where like procurement, you can just be like an asshole because it's all anonymous. You don't know the people. You just write and do not nice things, and that's it. Guess what? Not that different than like anonymous trolls on Reddit, except you have corporate authority and you're socially sanctioned to be like that. So
I will give a little bit of hope though. So one of my clients, totally different client. There's one client where I'm kind of like the misfit vendor, I guess. And I've known this group for a really long time, and they'll give me projects where they're like, we don't know who else this could go to. It doesn't quite fit our normal realm of projects. So we're going to give it to you. And one of the projects they gave me was actually a research project for procurement. They wanted me to interview their top vendors, the vendors they're spending the most money with, and understand how they could improve their process. And they wanted me to do the interviews as like a third party so that they were comfortable sharing, because I kept it anonymous, and then brought it back. And I was like, first I thought it was really great that they asked for the project. Now I will say, when I shared the results, let's say there's 10 in the room, 2 are like this, and they're like, well, then we won't pay them. But the other 8 were like, no, this is really good feedback that we were not going to get otherwise. And like, there was one thing in there, I think it was around, there was something in the process where it wasn't transparent. Like maybe it was how much money was left on your PO or something like that. And the reason they kept it so it wasn't transparent is that belief of, well, they'll spend the whole amount. And what, the suppliers came back with was, I already know what the total amount is because you opened the PO based on the proposal I sent you. Telling me what's left lets me know that you've actually got all my invoices and that we're on, like, that they're all like in the system. And so when I get, they're like, oh, we didn't think of it that way. So those kind of things. And I'm like, anyway, I was really impressed. I think some companies do the right things and should be applauded and like rewarded. Just not all of them do. Or there's people within the companies that don't always do the right thing.
Yeah. Agree. So what's interesting also is procurement is kind of like a microcosm of civilization, where like in civilization, you have lots and lots of really good people. Most people are good, but just caught up in this like terrible system constructed that incentivizes you to do terrible things. Most people kind of end up doing not nice things.
Yeah, well, you what is it? You do what your reward system is, right? If your reward system is negotiating people down or so many contracts in a certain terms, that's what you're going to do, right?
Yeah, it's true. I don't know of any large companies that have come up with a different system. So like this procurement system, as terrible as it is for everyone involved, seems to be ubiquitous above a certain size. I supposed to wonder if there's any sort of alternative.
Oh, that's interesting. I can think my larger clients, it's harder and more anonymous, meaning I don't know who I can contact and like that. The smaller clients I have, much less so. Like, I have some clients that don't even have a procurement department. Like they're just, they're handwriting a check, like which is great. I mean, that's, it's a better relationship, right?
A check, that's almost as old fashioned as a cord phone.
I still get a decent amount of checks. I'll take, you can pay me however you want. Like, I don't care. Like, sure, I'll take a check.
I like these issues. I like the general, it's interesting, this general category of dealing with procurement. I wish I had seen a solution or another way. It makes sense. Once a company reaches a certain size, you're like, oh, we're paying all these different people. all over the place in lots of different ways. Let's organize and centralize. It's like I would want to do the same. So like creating a procurement department is natural, and then once it's organized and centralized, it's kind of natural to be like, okay, who are we overpaying? How can we save? We'll save 1%. Like it's like the natural way for that department to grow. So the procurementization of the world might be an inevitable evil, and it might be a challenge for each of us as individuals and as small companies to learn how to survive that.
For sure. I think one of my passion projects is I like to help. Like I started my own business. It's been 17 years.
17 years.
Almost 18 years. And so one of the things that I like to do is help other people start their own business, right? Like there's plenty of, what I found is there's plenty of work for all of us. I'd rather have a partner in my corner than a competitor. I have like kind of a standard template contract that I worked with a lawyer on, and we kind of took some of all of my contracts. We created like a dummy version. And I share that with people as they're getting ready to get started. And I'm like, this is what it looks like. And this is what this means. This is kind of where I've been able to kind of negotiate. This is standard. This is stuff and like, just because you don't know, right? The other big piece that procurement normally pushes for, besides the billing terms, is insurance, like business insurance and liability insurance. And so I've kind of organized, hey, this is standard. And, find out what this is going to cost you. Like before you get started on your own, go out, talk to insurance agents, get a quote so you know what it's going to, so you're not surprised. It's all those little surprises that I think are just unnecessary stress in an already stressful situation when you're starting your business. When you have no money coming in the door, you're looking for clients, you finally get one, and then it's like just more problems. I don't know. It's one of those things. It's like, I think if you can help a few people start a company and they do really well, it's like, that's great, right? Like it's paying it forward.
My favorite piece of advice for doing this program, let's say at least a piece of advice I often give to younger professionals I mentor and help out, is whenever procurement contacts me out of the blue saying, hey, like we have an RFP, would love for you to, we're considering you for this project, would love for you to put in a bid. I've always advised people, no way in hell is it worth a second of your time, because younger me wasted a zillion hours doing that, and experience taught me you never get it. And then eventually what you kind of figure out is, there are all these rules and policies in order to prevent corruption that you have to get so many bids. But it turns out every single time they always know who they want to hire. So when procurement contacts you, it's really because they just want to check the box that they got another proposal. Yeah.
Instead of it coming from like the client directly, like the person who you'd be working with directly. Absolutely.
So I think there are a whole bunch of tips. Someone should do a whole podcast series just dealing with procurement.
I think you could do a whole like educational series on like how do you start, like just even how do you start, like how do you start your business, but be good at what you're good at, and then let's help you with these other things.
Very interesting and fun to interview someone that works in procurement to hear the other side.
Oh yeah. You hear all the stuff they hate about us, right? It's like it's gonna be called the supplier horror stories.
Yeah, these kids don't know what they're doing, and they
want to call me.
Yeah, and they keep on telling all these things to the actual person they're working with, but not us. So we don't know what's happening, and everyone always feels left out.
I will accept the feedback graciously if you ever get them on the podcast.
It's fun to hear both sides, and I'll definitely admit I think working in procurement kind of has to just like drive the life out of you, has to like remove that spark. It's I think the worst part about working in procurement and dealing with procurement we'll end this episode by wrapping back to the beginning, is one of the first points that you said, when like you signed it, then they changed the terms. And as soon as you said that, I was like, sketchy, but I think they did on purpose, which is this systematized sketchiness. I also think this is another way I've matured over the course of my career, which is younger me used to think every once in a while someone's incompetent or corrupt. Like not everyone is equally honest or equally competent. But over the years, you realize that it's much darker than that, because very often these sort of negative and illegal things are completely systematized. Where and like on purpose, we just sign the contract, then we go back and we change the terms because we have all the power, and that's how we can save another 2%.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the abject outright systematization of it just takes it to another level, and that's what happens.
Yeah, I think that's right. And then I don't know. I'll say, I don't know about older me is kind of like, then I just don't work with those companies. Like, I think once you get enough experience and confidence, you're like, if it doesn't feel right and it just doesn't meet my ethics, then that's just not who I work with.
I'm the same way. And also I think it takes experience to be able to smell the sketchiness.
Yeah.
Because younger me and probably younger you, would see these same things that we see, would have been like, oh, whatever, just bureaucracy. That's how bureaucracies are. And I would have gone with the flow saying, yeah, that's bureaucracies. Now, like, okay. Sign of sketchiness, another sign of sketchiness, another sign of sketchiness.
Yeah, it doesn't smell right. It doesn't smell right. You don't want to be caught up in that.
And by the way, this is to wrap up, tying into another topic. This is one of the reasons why a lot of people think AI will take over the world, but I'm not quite sure about that, because there's this sense of smell that this sense of smell that you can't really codify into technology. There's just all these, like, the way people glance, the way they look, the things that they don't say, the speed with which they say things, what they emphasize, what they don't. That is much subtler than just a computer optimization algorithm.
Yeah, I would like to believe that to be true. I have got colleagues are fearful that in our industry AI is going to take a lot of things over, but I'm like, so much of what I do is interpretation and looking when data doesn't align and finding out what the story is there, like what's the insight, and AI is not going to be able to do that. And it doesn't like when data doesn't align, right? It decides to choose one or the other, or throws it out.
I agree, and I'll go another step. It literally can, because in so often when you see all this data, like, what you have to do is you have to look at the data and construct a story that makes sense to explain the data. But the way you do that, I don't even know what you do other than the market research. But I'm also extrapolating for myself. A lot of what I do is I look at spreadsheets of numbers and I say to myself, what had to have happened in order to explain these numbers?
Yeah.
And it's so often it's just these like wild left field. Wait, this person was actually going through a divorce, so then he wasn't paying attention to this, so then that happened, and there's just like so much context that it's literally impossible for a chatbot to know the context to know what's actually happening.
So, okay, time for one more funny story, maybe on the same.
Oh, I love it. Always time for a funny story.
So I like, and this is going to date me a bit, but anyway, I talk at the local high school here to their AP.
We've already dated ourselves multiple times.
With, I know, so it's like still happening.
Phone.
Still happening. So I talked to the local AP stats class about like careers you could do, and market research relies on a lot of stats. And one of the things I try to do is like talk about like things that are more exciting than just, doing basic statistics. So I give an example of like how you kind of do critical thinking. And so I show a Google search and it says, is remote working more productive? And then the first thing in the search engine says, yes, from Harvard or Stanford. Then I say, is remote working less productive? And the answer is yes, from Stanford, right? And so I was telling this, and you're with a whole bunch of high school students, which is totally intimidating anyway. And this kid in the front, I said, why do you think this happens? And this kid in the front, who I thought was asleep because he had sunglasses on and like ski bum, I Spicoli, this is what's going to date me. He just was like my Spicoli in the audience, right, from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Fast Time, yeah.
And so he's sitting there, he's got sunglasses on, and he raises his hand, and I'm like, yes. And to myself, I'm thinking, you're awake. I was like, what's the answer? And he goes, Google doesn't tell you the truth. Google tells you what you want to hear. And I'm like, I have hope for this generation. Like, thank you. But that's it, right? Like the AI, whatever it's learning on, it's looking for the answer you want, not truth. And so we've kind of missed that plot, but maybe the teenagers haven't. Maybe they're so grown up with it that they know what the shortcomings are, and we're just totally befuddled and fearful.
I love this story. Great anecdote and way to end the episode. And the funny footnote that I'll add to that is we've been joking in this whole episode about our like landline references dating us. I think these last 5 minutes of our talk were like we just went on this like semi-related AI tangent. I think when people watch this episode 20 years in the future, it's going to date us wildly. Oh my God. Do you guys remember 20 years ago or before we were born when AI was brand new and they were actually debating whether it'd be good or bad? And they did like 20 years in the future when they have like AI earbuds, just like AI is like their entire existence. And they'll be like, wow, people were actually wondering.
Who are these old people?
Yeah, wow. 20 years of people were actually wondering and had moral questions about how about what it we're into. That was so cute the way people thought 20 years ago.
Aren't they all adorable?
Cool. And with that, super interesting episode. I love the tangents, love the procurement insights. I might go look out for someone from procurement to interview, but yeah. Melinda, this was lots of fun, really enjoyable, and everyone who's made it to end, I hope you learned as much as we did and had as much fun as we did. Thank you for watching.
Thanks.